Welcome to the College Football Prediction Show Roundtable, presented here on the Bleacher Report app exclusively. We're excited to talk about 10 big-time games this coming weekend, and we want to get all of your thoughts. I am one of your hosts, Jay Smith. We've got Steven as well as Ty in. Nino did not make it. He says he has a work event, even though we know he got fired on his day off. Pretty excited about the games that we've got lined up. I mean, top 10 matchups. It's going to be elite. So make sure y'all jump in the comments and let us know your thoughts. Gentlemen, how do we feel this week?
Man, I'm fired up after week one. My team is now front and center for the SEC. So, can't wait.
I apologize, Miami fans. Yeah, you can throw tomatoes at me. I accept it.
You definitely deserve it, but we'll give you this, though.
do.
You still had a solid week, and we're doing a point system this year, so we'll have standings and everything to populate on the screen here in the near future, but I'm going to tell you this, Ty, you're not going to be able to cheat like you did last year. So our expectations is big. We've got, like I said, 10 games. Here's our point system today. Steven's leading with 7, tied with Nick. Me and Ty both have 6. West Virginia failed me, just like Florida failed Ty. But you know what? It's redemption week. It's only week 1. We've got a whole season to figure this out. So let's jump right into the first game because I know you all are excited about it. I sure am too. Game number 1 is Texas traveling up to the big house in Ann Arbor, play against Michigan, number 10. So number 3, Texas, number 10, Michigan. Right now, the spread is sitting at Texas -7. Woo, that number keeps going up. And I'm going to be honest in this one. I'm going to go ahead and ride with Texas. We'll just go ahead and keep it simple. And the one real big reason why is Michigan needs to establish their quarterback spot, right? Alex Orji, Davis, Warren, they've got a 2 QB system. It's early in the season, but this is too big of a matchup for you to have 2 quarterbacks out there, right? Their defense is still stout. They're going to still control the clock. But I think that Texas just has just enough to get themselves the W in this one. But I do think Michigan does cover this spread. Steven, our resident Texas fan, how you feeling about going up to the big house?
Excited to see my team tested, especially heading into a very difficult SEC schedule. The expectations that Texas has coming off of last year's college football playoff appearance and now being ranked number 4 in the country, we knew he'd open the season going against the national champs, albeit Jim Harbaugh is not there. Jesse Minter is not there. Insert Wink Martindale, who is kind of the OG, if you will, for not only Jesse Minter, but Coach McDonald, who is now the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, who established that Michigan simulated pressure look, all of the success that they've had since 2021. Since Coach McDonald and the Baltimore Ravens and Jim Harbaugh went and got influenced by his brother, John Harbaugh, Michigan's lost 3 football games since then, okay? So they have been lights out on the defensive side of the football. They had a first-round pick at quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who lost 1 game in his career, which was to TCU. So I have a lot of respect for this Michigan program and what they've established over the last 3 years in college football playoff, the whole bit. Here's the thing, though. Texas is where Michigan was a few years ago now, and what Steve Sarkisian is looking to establish. And this team speed that he's put together, the identity of Texas that he's put together out there. Texas has a very stable quarterback situation going into Ann Arbor. And I do think that they're going to be able to exploit enough of that Michigan defense to establish a baseline. Quinn Ewers and Steve Sarkisian since 2022, they have really, on a low end, they score 27 points on a low end. They're typically in the 30s and above. Can Davis, Warren, and Alex Orji and this suspicious Michigan offense establish a baseline to that degree to get points on the board, even at home? I have doubts about that. Give me Texas here, 27-17. I have Texas covering this. I think it's going to be a very, very good physical football game early, but I think Texas, one thing I said earlier on Bleacher Report on my show, space. Texas will be good in space in this game, and leverage Michigan out to the perimeter and put some points on the board.
Ty, what you thinking? Michigan has a 34-game regular season winning streak. Will Texas snap it?
I believe so. And I agree with everything both of you have said. The only thing I would disagree with Steven on is I don't know that Texas covers, because I do believe this is a very good Michigan defense. They're going to make it difficult. I can see this being a low-scoring game, but I do have Texas winning, right? Here's the reason why. I go back to what happened week 1, Clemson, Georgia, right? Now, Texas is still figuring out the interior of that defensive line. They lost some great pieces there last year, and Michigan's got a fantastic rushing attack, so you already know they're going to test them there. But unless you're able to establish a passing game, if you're just relying on your great defense, which I do believe Michigan has, we saw Clemson try and rely on their great defense, but pressure bursts pipes, and after a while, it burst. That defense could no longer hold upright anymore. I think that Michigan has a little bit of an advantage being at home. That's a great environment, right? That's a bucket list game for any college football fan going to that stadium. Unbelievable environment. Mm-hmm. But I like Texas because I think Texas is a bit more multiple in this game. Michigan, this might be a different conversation, gentlemen, if this game was at the end of the year and Michigan had gotten to establish some quarterback play, some passing attack, but because it's not, give me the horns.
You guys see it? Next game up. Let's fly into this one, because this one's an interesting one. One that I feel like we should see more often. Arkansas travels to Stillwater playing against Oklahoma State. In this game, Oklahoma State has ballooned up to a 10-point favorite with the over-under sitting at 61.5. So we're expecting points to be scored. When I looked at this game, I wasn't sure what Arkansas was before the season started. Now that Bobby Petrino is back out there calling the plays, yeah, I know what they are. They're going to be a high-flying offense. And they looked really good week 1. Granted, it's week 1. It's a quote-unquote cupcake opponent. They looked good. Oklahoma State, though, defensively, looked a little shaky against San Diego State. And so because of that, give me Arkansas on the upset. I think they're going to go over there to Stillwater. That offense is going to be a little too much for Oklahoma State. We're going to see some SEC action. We're going to see some pressure put on them. We're going to see them try to run it down. Give me Arkansas for the win. Steven, how you feeling in this game?
I wrestled with this one, man. I really want to pick Arkansas in this game. I like the scenario that they're in with Bobby Petrino having fun again. Free Bobby, right? He's fine. He's not with Jimbo anymore. He's got the stink off of him as well. He's got a fun quarterback in Taylor Green to experiment with and grow. I think a lot of the concepts we're seeing with Arkansas remind me of what he did with Lamar Jackson at Louisville, right? Where he had some of that pro-style stuff, but also quarterback run game and just allowing the quarterback to flow. And his backfield mate in Jaquindon Jackson is awesome. I got to go with the experience of Oklahoma State, Gundy and those guys. He's got a bunch of super seniors. He's got Ollie Gordon, who is not the best running back in the country. We're going to cover the best running back in the country later. But Ollie Gordon is one of the Himothy's out there. And I know he won the Doak and everything, but there's another brother out there that's even better. But I think Oklahoma State is able to win this game at home. I do think Arkansas covers. I think it's like 7.5 or something like that. I want to pick Arkansas so much, but I got to go with these seniors. And my buddy Austin Taylor out there, I'm shouting you out because you put blood on the line as an Oklahoma State grad and said y'all would not lose this game. So I'm putting this on you, AT. And if you do, I'm coming for you, brother.
Ty, what you thinking in this one?
So for me, there's a few games this week, gentlemen, that I think this week is kind of overlooked in the college football sphere. Some sneaky good games out there, really, and this is one of them. I'm going Arkansas, and I'm going to tell you why. Everything Steven said is 100% accurate. Here's the only problem, though. against South Dakota State, they had a receiver go for 150 yards, did South Dakota State. They had a running back average like 8 yards per carry. If you can't stop South Dakota State rushing the ball, how are you going to stop Jaquindon Jackson, who had 8 carries for like 100 yards? Taylon Green, who had just shy of 100 yards on like 6 carries. If Arkansas can establish a passing game, Oklahoma State showed us last week that they couldn't stop South Dakota State's passing game. Now, granted, they won by 24. It was 44-20. 150 yards was given up to one receiver. If Arkansas establishes that pass game with the way Bobby Petrino is mixing in the quarterback run, that's where I think that Arkansas could have the edge over Oklahoma State. But regardless, great game. And Steven, I have a sneaking suspicion I know who you were talking about for who the best running back is. I agree.
Okay, all right. Well, sounds like we've got a little break in here. We'll see what Nino picked later on to add to this. Next game. Kansas State is traveling down to New Orleans. They're taking on the Tulane Green Wave. In this game to start, Kansas State is now a 9-point favorite with an over-under sitting at 47.5, which is very, very intriguing. Personally, simplify this bad boy, I'm going to ride with Kansas State. The last time that Kansas State played Tulane came to Manhattan, Kansas, and beat them 17-10. That taste in the mouth of Kansas State is still there. They've got to get their revenge. Even though Tulane has been really good over the last 3 years, they have been basically almost upsetting a lot of teams. I feel like Avery Johnson is ready. He took the helm last week, looked solid, 14 for 21, 153, 2 touchdowns. You had Giddens, had 13 carries for 124. And I think that Tulane, even with their pickups like Mario Williams from USC, he had 4 catches for 124. They've got some players and they got some dudes. And their quarterback Mensah, who won the quarterback battle over Ty Thompson, kind of shocked you, boy. Looked pretty solid, 10 for 12 in the game. I think Kansas State does what they need to do to manage the clock. I think they run it well. They also pass it well. They take their time. Give me Kansas State to cover this bad to win it. And I think they also cover the spread. Steven, what you got?
I wrestled with this one too, but I had to go back to last year when I picked Tulane to beat Ole Miss. And I was getting to that point of talking myself into this. A young Avery Johnson on the road, very talented Avery Johnson, but this is his first big road spot here. But Kansas State does have enough returning firepower. Giddens is a very good back, very experienced back. There's still a lot left on that Kansas State offensive line from the years. Chris Kleiman, I'm trusting him, and that's kind of my definitive factor here, is the coaching in this one. If Tulane still had Willie Fritz, I would, maybe lean into going into Tulane waters because playing in New Orleans is going to be a tough, fun spot. But give me Kansas State here. I think Avery Johnson is going to be able to break off a few runs. He actually focused a little bit more on his passing last week. I think you're going to see some of the dynamic dual threat stuff that really made a lot of people excited about him as one of the biggest recruits in Kansas State history coming out of high school. Give me Kansas State and Chris Kleiman and those guys.
All right, Ty, how you feeling in this one?
Give me K-State. Like Steven said, if they had Willie Fritz, I might ride the green wave on this one, but they don't. And I still think Tulane's a really good team. I still think this is going to be a fight. I still wrestled with this. But when I look at Kansas State, it's how multiple they are with their rushing attack. Whether it's Giddens, whether it's Dylan Edwards. Avery Johnson's not one to, if he sees an opportunity, he'll take off on you as well. I just think that over 4 quarters, Kansas State will be able to outlast, but I do anticipate a fantastic football game. And like I said, I do believe Tulane is a heck of a team.
I'm with you on that one. All right, next game up. This one's a fascinating one. A pseudo road game for Tennessee, yet it's at a neutral site. Tennessee travels to North Carolina, and they're going to be playing in Charlotte against North Carolina State. Not at North Carolina State's home stadium. It's similar to Georgia playing in Atlanta. So it's up the street, round the corner, something familiar, but Tennessee's still traveling. Nico Iamaleava gets his first quote unquote travel game, right, of the season. Again, it's neutral site, so it's not really travel, but he's in their state. You'll see more North Carolina State fans than you will probably see Tennessee. Spread opened at -4 and has ballooned to -10 Tennessee. Boy, that tells me a lot. I'm taking Tennessee in this game. And the reason is North Carolina State struggled in their first game of the season against Western Carolina. It's not a game that you're supposed to struggle in, right? It was tied 14-14 at the half. They did win 38-20, but the fact that they allowed this game to be 21, but allowed this game to be tied at the half makes me have questions. Grayson McCall, I expect him to be a lot better than he was. Kind of looked a little suspect. Now, Tennessee does have some questions in that secondary. They lost their top guy. It was a Jordan who was their, I guess you could call him a star player, one of the nickelback that moves around. He may be out, but I think Tennessee defensively with James Pierce Jr. is going to put McCall in hell. Give me the Vols to win this one. I don't think they cover the spread, though. I think this game stays within about 9 points, but Tennessee wins. Steven?
I'm kind of in the same ilk as you, Jay, especially when you start talking about the spread, but let me kind of reverse engineer this. NC State might be one of those teams where week one could be a mirage. And what I mean by that is we overreact heavily to week one, right? I mean, some of these teams that struggled, they didn't lose, but they struggled. And it's like, oh, you know what? That starts playing with your mind in terms of how you pick them. But Grayson McCall has played a lot of college football. Dave Duren, as a head coach, has lost, 5 or 6 games in the last 2 years. Like, NC State has been a very solid program. They've faced a lot of explosive offenses like what they'll see in Tennessee. So I do think that if you're picking NC State or you're considering them because they didn't look good against Western Carolina, that's kind of the same aspect of like Michigan and Fresno State. Like, that's not going to be the same team that shows up in Charlotte to play Tennessee. With that being said, I watched Nico throw the football last week. That brother's going to spark these dudes on fire. This has nothing to do with NC State. It has everything to do with Nico. It has everything to do with James Pierce Jr. I think Josh Heupel has one of the more underrated attacks. Give me Tennessee here. I think this is going to be a thing of when did you put your bet in to cover this? Did you put your bet in at Tennessee -7.5, or did you put it in at 9.5? I think that's going to matter here. But Nico's, I don't think Vegas is adjusted to Nico yet. I'm gonna just say it. I think he's that good, and I think you're going to leave this game talking about Nico beating up a really good team in NC State.
That's a fair point, Steven. It's all about when you got it. -10, not so much. -7 or -4? Heck yeah, they're going to cover that. Ty, what you got?
Guys, I might have to disagree with y'all. I think Tennessee covers. And here's the reason why, right? I think Tennessee covers. I love how I set y'all up for that. But NC State is a very good team. And Steven, I completely agree with you. We do overreact to week one. We're all guilty of it. It is the product of being diehard college football fans. But I just got off of a stream earlier this morning with former college football players, and one of the things they talked about was that week 1 to week 2 jump and how that's a really important time in the beginning of the season. And I absolutely believe we're going to see that from NC State. Here's the issue, gentlemen. This Heupel offense. Steven, you started down the path. I'm going to take everybody and finish the journey. This veer and shoot offense that they're employing, it's tough. Not only in the sense of that they want to spread you real out wide, try and thin up the middle of that defense. And if you say, okay, well, we're not going to thin the middle of the defense, we're just going to man up on the outside, drop some safeties, and keep the box stacked. Nico in this Tennessee offense is far too happy to say, bet. Man on man, let's roll. And they're going to attack you on the outside, whether that's deep, comebacks. But the other thing is the tempo. They are going to lull you to sleep. Underneath. Oh, would you look at that double move, 70-yard touchdown? No, I'm not saying that's how this game is going to go. But what I'm saying is that's the principalities of this veer and shoot offense, and it's dangerous. This is a very dangerous offense. I believe NC State is a good team, but I like Tennessee because, as Jay will tell you, Nico is my favorite quarterback in an incredibly loaded quarterback class.
100%. He was definitely one of the 5 stars that have shown that he should have been 5-star status. All right. Next game. This one is an interesting one. Big 12 matchup. First time in the Big 12 for Utah as Baylor comes to town. Now, the spread is Utah minus 14.5. Sounds very high, but it makes sense. Quarterback Cam Rising's back for his 17th season in college football. And my goodness, 10 for 15, 254, 5 touchdowns in his first game. Looks like he did not miss anything with that knee injury that he had. Baylor's coming in with Dave Aranda having to refresh his entire coaching staff because he's basically on the hot seat. I'm going to simplify for you all. Give me Utah. I ain't got much to explain besides the fact that Cam Rising is back. He looks like he's played football for a long time, and he's going to go out there and put the pain on Baylor. I actually think they cover this spread, even though it's dropped from the minus 17 it opens at. Give me Utah. Steven?
This was actually a really fun game in Waco last year where Utah ended up winning 20-13. If y'all remember, that was a game where it came down to like the last play of the game, and they threw up the Hail Mary and the whole thing there. And Sawyer Robertson was out there playing quarterback for Baylor, and Utah had their quarterback situation, and there was a lot of chaos going on. Cam Rising settles all that. Utah's at home. Richard Reese and those guys at Baylor who are still there, they're not going to be able to run through this Utah defense. And now Utah's in the conference too, right? So they already got a taste of Baylor last year. This is actually a rematch, but now it's on Utah soil. Give me Utah. That's too much to overcome if I'm Baylor with a new starting quarterback, new personnel in there. And this is a better Utah team than the Utah team that they saw in 2023 in Waco. Nah, I'm good on that. Give me Utah.
Yeah, Utah brought in some wide receivers. And also, this is fascinating nugget. This is not a conference game. This is still non-conference because of that game at home and home contract. Very fascinating piece. Tyus, who you got? Oh, are you on mute? Ty,
I can't hear Ty.
Yeah, I think you went on mute, my man.
Well, you know what? It wouldn't be a live show if that didn't happen to us. I thought I had to sneeze. I was like, I don't want to sneeze while someone's talking. That's how
that was an interesting bit, live, Jay.
Unscripted, and here we are. But I actually didn't know that this isn't technically a conference game. That's fascinating. Thank you for that nugget. But I'm going to keep this very short. Give me Utah. I like Kyle Whittingham. Cam Rising's an experienced quarterback. I actually think Kyle Whittingham's probably one of the most underrated coaches in the nation. You don't hear him get the praise he deserves. The guy is a phenomenal coach. Utah's got a dangerous tight end. I won't attempt to pronounce the last name because every time I do, I butcher it, and you don't deserve that. You are better than that. You don't deserve me messing things up. Give me Utah.
Gotta say, I like that across the board. Now, next game we've got Boise State traveling to Oregon. The line opened at 19.5 is ballooning up to 21 on some books, over under at 60.5. And I'm going to be honest, the fact that Oregon is this big of a favorite tells me a lot. Steven, you mentioned this before that, and you said this as well, Ty, week 1 jump to week 2. Yeah, sometimes games are anomalies. Oregon may have had that, only winning 24-14, and your quarterback threw for 380 yards and 2 touchdowns with only 8 incompletions on 49 passes. How does that happen against a team like Idaho? I don't know, but it may have been first week jitters. Well, Boise State comes to town, and Boise State's been a pain in Oregon's side for a while. And I mean a while. I'm not even going to go down the history of it, but I'll say this. I think Oregon goes ahead and closes the deal. They need this win. This is a critical non-conference game for them. And not even to say that, honestly, they have to cover this spread too. They really do, because going into Big Ten play, we've already got questions about Oregon's physicality in comparison to the competition they're going to see. They need to go out there and muscle Boise State. They cannot let them even stick around. You got to blow them out. You've got the talent. You've spent so much money on transfers, so much money in NIL and recruits. You got to show us that was worth it. Give me Oregon to win this game. I actually think they cover the spread too. Steven?
Ashton Jeanty, that's who I was talking about, folks. That's the best running back in the country. He had 6 touchdowns last week. He he was probably the most underrated college football player coming back into this season. When you look at what he did last year, this is a fun player to watch. I call him a one-man band because he gets his yards no matter what the quarterback situation is, no matter what the passing game situation is. He is a Sunday NFL runner, and I think he's one of the most dynamic football players in the country, pound for pound. I'm super excited to see him against this Oregon defense because Jay just said it. Oregon's physicality is up for question. You can't hide what you saw on the tape against Idaho. Again, the week 1 overreactions and things of that sort. Here's the thing, though. Oregon kind of got, in my opinion, they got the benefit of the doubt because of Dan Lanning and because of what the expectations are. And I think people more went after teams like Colorado and beat them up for their week 1 win than Oregon got beat up for beating Idaho team, right? So it's kind of interesting how that played out. But a lot of people said, hey, Dan Lanning, this team, what they're expected to do. Evan Stewart, who only had 3 catches for 15 yards last week, they're expected to rock and roll. I got Oregon in this game. I'm picking Oregon, but I would not be surprised if Boise State was to pull off something special here. That's how good Ashton JT in this running attack is. But give me Oregon Ducks in a closer one than people suspect. I have some questions about their physicality as well.
Ty, what you thinking?
I was so close. I mean, so close to picking Boise State because of everything Steven said. Jainty is spectacular. And I completely agree. He's probably even still the most underrated college football player. I see everybody talking about all these different players, and that's all well-deserved. That guy is spectacular. Boise State is not a team you want to play. Let's be very honest. Jay, you're an Oklahoma fan. I don't need to open up those wounds, right? Like, you don't want this Boise squad because they're usually pretty darn good. That being said, I am going to take Oregon. Here's why. Oregon has a lot of talent. But, Steven, you're 100% right. Everybody gave Oregon a pass for beating a team that I don't believe is as good as North Dakota State. I just don't, right? Like, yes, Colorado, they're Power 4. But I don't think that people understand how good that NDSU team has been. It's a solid squad, historically even. Oregon's got to prove something. Because if you get out of a close one last week, you get upset this week, you don't think that the likes of Michigan, Ohio State, dare I say even Penn State, are now looking at you like food? They will. And you're not in the pack anymore. And I understand the Pac-12 last year was as good as I've seen the Pac-12 in darn near 20 years. I mean, the Pac-12 last year was phenomenal. A little bit ironic that it was phenomenal on its deathbed. Oregon has to have this game. And I think they're able to pull it out. I don't know that they cover, though.
Ooh, I can totally understand that one. All right, next game up. We've got the Cy-Hawk Trophy game presented by the Iowa Corn people. We've got Iowa State, Iowa in Iowa City. Woo-wee. Right now, the spread is sitting Iowa at -3. Opened at -2, but it's -3. I am intrigued by this one. Look, I'm just going to go out there and just say it. I feel an upset here. Give me Iowa State in this one. Only reason why is Iowa State's bringing back a lot of production from last year, right? They're top 10 in returning production. And that's when Matt Campbell's teams are at their best, is when they're just bringing back a whole bunch of players on both sides of the ball. Iowa, I still need to see if Iowa can truly score touchdowns. They got, 20 or 15 safeties last game or something like that. So points are not really scored by the offense. They like to punt the ball on second down just so they can play more defense. They're that hard-nosed. But on a serious note, Iowa State's defense has been solid over the years under Matt Campbell. And I think that they can come to Iowa City. And at +3, I think they cover the spread and win it outright. Give me Iowa State. Steven, who you riding with?
So the other thing that's really fun about these games is the over-under, and I see that here in the chat. I believe the over-under right now is 35 and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's another thing, right? Because Iowa actually covered the over last week, surprisingly. So this 35 and a half, I think it could go over slightly. I think you could have a 20-17 type situation either side. I like Iowa in this game. I think some of the things they showed in the passing game last week are transferable to this week. And in terms of they don't need that much in terms of, to modernize. I mean, that's how far behind they've been. I like Iowa in this game. They still dominate this series. I mean, I know Iowa State won a year 2 years ago, but I think they've won like something like 7 of the last 8. It has gone Iowa's way. So I like them at home. I think that this is like a 20. I think Iowa State could cover, but give me Iowa here in that defense. I think they're going to make some plays and maybe produce a non-offensive touchdown or points in this game.
Yeah, it's been 7 out of the last 8. 8 out of the last 10 has gone to Iowa, but fascinating enough, Iowa State's 2 wins were in Iowa City. Ty, who you got?
Give me Iowa. They play excellent defense. And last week, I had to not only do a double take, I had to knock on my neighbor's door and ask for entry into their domain so that I could check to make sure it wasn't my TV that was messed up when I saw Iowa had 40 points. And lo and behold, their TV said the exact same thing. So I like Iowa in this game. What did you say the line was?
It is -3, and it's been basically sitting between 2 and 3, hovering the last few days.
Yeah, I think Iowa gets that.
Hey, chat. Over under 35 and a half. Y'all tell us in the chat. Is this
give us what you
what's
got?
The point's going to be? tell us what you got in this game.
I'm calling under, man. It just doesn't feel like either one of these teams are going to want to score that many points because, that's just a tradition as old as the game itself in the state of Iowa. Next game, we've got a big matchup. I don't care what none of y'all say. This matchup's huge. We've got Colorado traveling to Nebraska in a rematch from last season. Colorado won that game 36-14. They were in Nebraska's behind, but Nebraska also didn't have a quarterback. Now you got 5-star quarterback Dylan Raiola making his debut against, a Power 4 team at the crib. Colorado still has one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Shedeur Sanders. Probably the best two-way player we've seen since Charles Woodson and Travis Hunter. An electric offense, a Matt Rule defense. It's going to be a fascinating battle. Spread-wise, it opened at 7 and it's now dropped to 6, and it's been hovering between 7 and 6 for literally all week. I have paid close attention to this game because in the betting side, 56.5 is the over-under. The fact that everybody is betting on Nebraska to cover this spread and it's not moving in their favor has your boy nervous. So guess what? I'm taking Colorado to win this game. Also got Colorado to cover this spread with ease because they're going to win it. Why? I think that Dylan Raiola playing against a defense that not too many people know about. Robert Livingston's the new defensive coordinator there at Colorado. They're still working their kinks out, but they're pretty veteran in their defense. And if you put the right amount of trickery in there to confuse a young quarterback, the best thing that happened to Colorado is seeing them game 2, is seeing Dylan Raiola game 2. If this was game 5, I'm picking Nebraska, but it's game 2. So they've got an opportunity to do just enough to confuse, destabilize, infiltrate, make things hard for Raiola to get this W. I think Colorado covers. I think it's a close game, but I think Colorado wins it outright. Give me the Buffs. Steven, who you riding with?
This is going to be a super fun game Saturday night. I think this game is going to generate massive ratings. The criticism that Colorado faced coming off of their win against North Dakota State, we know they was goofy, drunk uncle type coaching at the end of that game, and that's where a lot of the criticism is also coming in. But let's look at it from this standpoint. North Dakota State deployed a very physical quarterback run oriented power type spread offense with a lot of nuance. That Colorado defense, yeah, you can bang on them there. But where they did improve in the terms of their pass rush and whatnot, I think will help them in terms of this game. Styles make fights. And I think this is a better matchup for Colorado's defense going against a young Dylan Raiola, who is very gifted, very talented, but he's got a lot of eyeballs. This is a big stage that Shedeur and Travis are used to cooking under. And at home, there's expectations, right, of Nebraska winning this. I think people are going to be surprised by Colorado's pass rush and ability to get a couple turnovers in this game. I think Shedeur and Travis and those wide receivers are going to be able to make some plays. I have Colorado winning this game in an upset. So if you want to if you don't feel that good, you can say Colorado in the points and be good there. But I have Colorado winning this game in an upset as well. And, kind of putting people on notice after the North Dakota State game because it's just a better matchup for them, in my opinion.
I love it. Styles make games. And that is so true. We preach that very often on here. Ty, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, y'all can't see it, but just behind me right over there, I have the Boxing Almanac, and that's where my analysis always come from. The style makes the fight. And in this game, I agree with both of you. I think Colorado wins. Why? Because I do believe this is going to be a shootout. And in a shootout, all due respect to Raiola, I think Nebraska has something. I look at this game similar to how I look at Texas, Michigan, except this one I feel stronger about. If this game was played week 10, I think we might have a bit of a different conversation because Raiola is acclimated. He's not young. He's not a puppy anymore to the degree he is now. We'd have a bit of a different conversation, but give me Colorado because in a shootout, I'm going to take Shedeur. I'm going to take Travis Hunter. I'm going to take those wide receivers because they lost a guy to the NFL. And it doesn't look like they're skipping a beat on the offense. That's a dangerous passing a game. I like Colorado for the upset. And therefore, like you said, all the betting lines follow.
There we go. All right. Let's look at some massive spreads. I know y'all are in the chat talking about y'all want more betting and talking about well, we're going to give it to you. We got 3 games here, and then we'll finalize it with our mortal lock of the week. Next up, we have Western Michigan and Ohio State. Now, Ohio State in this game is sitting right now at a 37.5-point favorite, down from 39. The question is, can Ohio State cover this ginormous spread? It's fluctuating on them. And in this game, I'm going to go ahead and say Ohio State does cover it. Now, the thing is, last week, Ohio State had the opportunity to cover their spread. They did not. They won. It was like a 40-plus point spread. Ohio State won that game, 52-9. So they didn't hit the number. Now, Western Michigan was also a ginormous dog against Wisconsin last week, and they only lost 28-14. They were a 24-point dog, and they only lost by 14 points. That's actually quite impressive on them. Or is the questions on Wisconsin? I don't know. But I think that Will Howard goes out there, figures things out, and he just throws it. I think that Ohio State takes their run game, goes down their throat, and they say, look, we need to have a statement game as we continue through the season. This is the one. Give me Ohio State to cover that spread. Steven, what you got?
I'm going no. I think Western Michigan covers this. I'm not going with Ohio State here to cover the 38.5. Ohio State struggled on the offensive line a little bit to get the run game going with Judkins and Travion. That was interesting. It wasn't Will Howard actually was. If you go back and watch the game, Will Howard was actually fine. They had some drops and some things to get the younger guys going until Carnell Tate. We know the young freshman Jeremiah Smith, who's one of one, right? And Emeka Kuba's still there. So they still got Infinity Stones at receiver. But Western Michigan, like you said, Jay, I mean, they actually played some good ball last week against a Wisconsin team coached by Luke Fickell that I do have respect for. And Ty and them are going to see them next week. 30.5 is a lot if you're playing a team that, is not bad, right? And so this is more
Right.
out of respect to Western Michigan and me not seeing the dominant offensive line play yet by Ohio State. I think that's something that they'll probably get there, in conference play, but I don't know if they're there yet to create enough of the traction there and separation in this case.
Ty, who's covering?
Yeah, last week I went out on a limb and told you all that Ohio State would not cover that massive spread against Akron, but this week I think it's a little bit different. Why? Because Akron is a little bit better defensively, or at least they were last year, than is Western Michigan. Now, I understand the Wisconsin game, right? Wisconsin did not look great. My question is Wisconsin just not that team that so many people thought they were going to be? Are they well coached? Absolutely. But I have questions about Tyler Van Dyke that stretch back to Miami, right? And they certainly are now active once again now that he is at Wisconsin. I like Ohio State to cover this game, and that's saying something because last week I was bullish on Ohio State not covering against Akron.
Like to hear that. All right, next game up. We're riding with Penn State's massive spread of minus 35.5 against Bowling Green. Now, that spread has moved from 32 as an opener on some books. And it's interesting with over-under of 49.5. Like, how do you have an opening, have a spread of 35.5, and your over-under is really at only 49? So it sounds like the expectation is Penn State's just going to go out there and just beat those boys up. And I'm going to pick Penn State to cover the spread. It feels like the win against West Virginia's got them on a high. They did it on the road, and they won 34-12. Drew Aller is out here looking like an NFL quarterback based upon what NFL analysts are saying. I don't know. Still, the jury's out in my personal opinion, but I don't think he has a problem against Bowling Green. I think they go out there, they set their pace that they want, and they kick the dog do out of them. I think it's all belt to behind. Give me Penn State covering this spread. Steven.
I have Penn State covering here. I don't think enough was made about how impressive Penn State was, especially playing in, it looked like they were in a monsoon of some sort that was of epic proportions.
Yeah.
They were never going to be able to come back from in that game. But Drew Aller looked, all the stuff you heard in the offseason, he looked the part, guys. And that run game, that run game's there. We know the Penn State defense is very good. I think James Franklin and this crew are looking at the Big Ten, same way Lincoln Riley and USC are looking at the Big Ten after week one. Like, Michigan might not be Michigan anymore, and Ohio State can be had. This might be the time for us, with our quarterback looking the way he does and the weapons we have, to really move forward and become real conference contenders. I think Penn State keeps that momentum going and covers this spread because Drew Aller and them are looking to reinforce and establish how dominant of a team they could be.
I like that. Ty, who's covering the spread?
I like Penn State to cover. They have a wide receiver who's dangerous, right? I'm very excited to see him play. Drew Aller looked really good. E-Rev thinks that this is a letdown spot for PSU and that Bowling Green will cover. Bowling Green, E-Rev says, has a good run game. Very fair. Very fair.
True.
I just think that Penn State has enough on the defensive line to bottle that up and for the offense to really continue flexing. Listen, if you're Penn State, you understand. You have been abysmal against the top teams within the Big Ten. That's just the truth, right? Like, what's Franklin? 2 big wins against the major teams in the Big Ten. That's got to change this year. And he's got the components to do it. But how you do that is you cover against teams like a Bowling Green. I expect them to do that. And I think Drew Aller and this offense are going to look to continue progressing to get these reps.
All right. Last big spread of the day. We've got Notre Dame at the crib. Northern Illinois is pulling up. So Notre Dame is coming off of that big win down at Kyle Field. And at 28, this spread appears to be dropping. Opened at 30. Over under as at 44.5. So, got you wondering if Riley Leonard and crew can go out there and really put the numbers in on Northern Illinois. I'm going to say Yeah. I think Notre Dame needs to have another statement game. The Texas A&M game, they'll be riding high off being on the road at Kyle Field. And they're going to come into this one and be like, look, we need to just destroy this team and show that Notre Dame is for real this season. Give me Notre Dame minus 28. And honestly, I think they go under the 44.5. I think it's like 40-0. Steven, what you riding with?
I think this is under as well. I think that this is a game where Notre Dame will cover, but cover late. They're going to come home and get a little bit of a coronation for what they accomplished at A&M last week. But I do think that, with the focus, this is still a younger offensive team. They may probably sputter a little bit early in this game. That defense is one of the best in the country, though, and they're not going to give it up. And I actually think they could get some points. Again, not offensive points, not offensive touchdowns. I like Notre Dame to cover this later, but I think something like 31-0 or 35-3 type score, right? In that range is where Notre Dame will probably fall. And that offensive line getting going in the run game late and just wearing them out.
I like that. Wearing them down with the run game. Ty, what you riding with?
What'd you say the point total was on this game?
Point total's 44.5 right now. And
so I like Notre Dame to cover, but I like the under on the point total. And Stephen, both those scores you just said, that's about exactly where I'm at, right? Like, I think both of those scores, very realistic. I like the under overall, but I do like Notre Dame to cover. Notre Dame's defense is really, really good. The offensive line handled a very, very talented Texas A&M defensive front. Now, I think we have questions as to how good Texas A&M's offense is, but I also think whenever you play a really good defense, it can make an offense that may not be the best look really bad. And that's kind of where I sit right now. I don't think Texas A&M has a world-beating offense, but I think a really good defense made them look inept. Give me Notre Dame to cover this, but I do like the under overall.
I like to hear that. All right, mortal locks of the week. Now, these are the ones that we're telling you it's going to happen. No matter what you try to say or think out your mind, this one's going down. For me, mortal lock, simply put Arkansas plus 7.5. Man, Arkansas is going to go to Stillwater, and they're going to cover that spread. They may actually win that game, right? I've got Arkansas winning the game, too. They're going to go in there. Bobby Petrino needs to prove a point. He needs to prove that he still got it. He looked like he had it last week. If he goes to Stillwater and does it, man, he's going to save Sam Pittman's job, or he's going to push him out of his job. I'm calling for Arkansas to cover that spread. Steven.
I'm going UTSA +1 as my mortal lock this week. They're playing Texas State. This is going to be a very emotional game, big-time rivalry game that a lot of people don't know about in terms of the trash talk between these two schools, even though they're not in the same conference. The thing is, Texas State is finally, they've really made some strides with their football program, and I'm really, really proud of where they've gotten to. Jordan McLeod at quarterback played very well last week, and Texas State is at home, and all this momentum of, they're coming off their first bowl appearance. They've never beaten UTSA, and that's not going to happen this time. They're about to go the sixth time where UTSA is going to beat them. McNown and those guys, I think it's just going to be a little too much for Texas State to handle, and I have UTSA. I think there's a mental thing between those two schools, and I think UTSA is going to exploit that mental block.
Ty, what's your mortal lock?
I love that, Steven. I love that pick. My mortal lock is Jay and I had the exact same idea. In fact, about 10 seconds after he sent the email yesterday, I texted him telling him how mad I was at him. The only area we differ, I'm not just telling you I think Arkansas is going to cover. I'm telling you I think Arkansas gets the win outright. I think they pull off the upset against Oklahoma State, and I like that. It's not even just about covering. They get the win.
Nice. We got some big
As
ones
a
here,
mortal
man. Jump
lock.
in the chat.
Wow.
Mortal lock. This is it. That's the one. Hey, Me and Ty's on the same wavelength. Hopefully our wavelength is right. Hopefully it is spot on. So, hey, let's look at these final picks. Nino is right in there with us. Let's see what he's decided that he wanted to put out there.
Nino's
Ooh,
picks.
He got O State as well. Yeah.
He's got Nebraska.
He's got Nebraska.
And he's got Nebraska's immortal lock. Wow.
Bananas.
He's picking against family.
He's picking against family. And you know what we say about that? We don't pick against family. But, hey, we won't be mad at Nino on this one. We'll let him survive. But thank y'all for pulling up to the College Football Prediction Roundtable presented here live on the Bleacher Report app. I am Jay. That's Steven. That's Ty. We'll see y'all next week with our next set of picks. Tell us in the comments what y'all think. And, yeah, we'll chop it up soon. Peace.